Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really going deep into some, well, pretty eye-opening source materials, stuff that can be quite unsettling, actually.
Definitely. We're looking at themes that span, our own biology, huge global events, and even the information we consume every day.
And just to be clear up front, our job here isn't to say if these claims are true or not. We're just laying out what the sources allege.
Yeah, exactly. The sources we're examining present ideas about, say, alleged mind manipulation via common substances, claims about things like geoengineering, some really unusual natural events, and they definitely question mainstream information sources.
Right. So our mission today is basically to unpack all these claims, get to the core ideas, and understand the connections the source material itself is trying to draw.
Let's get into it.
Okay, let's start with something pretty central in the sources. This idea about the pineal gland. They call it a main receiver.
Uh-huh. They describe it as having this crystal inside, acting as like our primary link to spirituality, calmness, positive human traits.
A biological link to higher consciousness, essentially. That's a big claim right there.
It is, and the sources bring in this historical angle. They claim that back in WWII, in concentration camps, Russians and Germans supposedly identified this link.
And then what?
Well, the really alarming claim is that they then use fluoride specifically to suppress those connections in prisoners.
Wow. Where do they say this information comes from?
The sources point to texts like Schur's Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. And they even mention Pulitzer Prize-winning books, though they don't always specify which ones exactly. It's a very serious allegation within the material.
Okay, so building on that, here's where it gets, well, really interesting for today. They say mainstream science now agrees the pineal gland is an electrochemical receiver, right?
Yeah, they concede that point. But then they hit you with this. They claim it's totally calcified in Western countries.
Totally calcified, as in not working.
That's the implication. They contrast this with supposed observations of, like, small crystals in the pineal glands of people like Buddhist monks.
Implying their crystal receiver is still active, uncalcified.
Precisely. That's the picture they paint.
So what do they say causes this alleged calcification?
They point the finger directly at hydrofluorosilicic acid.
Okay, what is that?
The sources describe it as a toxic industrial byproduct from making aluminum and fertilizer, basically.
Toxic how?
They really emphasize its MSDS rating material safety data sheet. They say it's rated a 4.
And 4 mean?
On that scale, it's the highest toxicity level. They put it in the same category as, like, cyanide. That's what the sources claim.
That sounds incredibly dangerous.
It does. And their assertion, the really big one, is that the government gets rid of this industrial waste by putting it into public drinking water.
Okay, hold on. So they're saying this stuff, this hydrofluoro whatever acid,
Hydrofluorosilicic acid, yeah.
is deliberately put in water, and it calcifies the pineal gland. What else do they claim it does?
The claims are pretty extreme. The sources say it fries sperm, fries DNA, fries the thyroid gland, affects reproductive organs.
Fries them. That's strong language.
Very. And crucially, they tie it back to the pineal gland calcification. They say it jams our antenna to God.
So it's cutting people off from higher consciousness, higher intelligence. That's the core allegation.
That's the core allegation presented in these sources, yes. It's obviously a view that starkly contrasts with established science, but that's the claim.
And they see signs of this changing in the media.
Interestingly, yes. The sources point to outlets like CNN. They claim CNN has reported on links between fluoride exposure, even in the womb, and lower IQs in kids.
Lower IQs.
Yeah, and they claim CNN even acknowledged that just a small increase, like 0.5 of this hydrofluorosilicic type fluoride, can cause a massive reduction in IQ.
Huh. And toothpaste warnings.
They bring that up too, the standard warning, poisonous if swallowed. They see that as further evidence.
This ties into something else they mentioned, doesn't it? These bad halogens.
Right. They lump fluoride in with bromine and chlorine as bad halogens, detrimental substances.
And the counter to that is?
Good iodine. They stress its importance. They even claim the government used to put a cheaper version of iodine in things and that it boosted IQs massively.
So the idea is good iodine helps prevent the body from absorbing these other supposedly toxic halogens.
That's the connection they make, yes, that iodine is protective.
Okay, so that's the biological manipulation angle. But these sources also talk about huge environmental stuff, right? Earth changes.
They do. It's another big pillar of their claims. They point to recent seismic activity earthquakes.
Like where?
They mention Japan, like a 7.1 near Fukushima,
That
talk of tsunamis. and Mexico, and 8.1, then a 7.1 hitting Mexico City.
Hmm.
Pretty significant events.
And what do they say is causing these or contributing?
Well, one factor they point to is the sun. Record solar flares or sunspots. They call them mass coronal ejections.
Okay, solar flares. How do they connect that to earthquakes?
The claim is these flares manipulate the atmosphere and even the Earth's crust. They say the energy kind of bounces off the core.
Wow. And they mention the sun's activity level now.
Yeah, they say it's at its maximum activity right now, describing it as having huge thermonuclear explosions every 5 minutes, and that this directly impacts our weather.
Weather. Which brings us to the really controversial part, geoengineering.
Uh-huh. And weather modification systems. The sources are quite direct about this.
What exactly are they claiming?
They state flat out that patents for these kinds of systems exist. You can find them online. And they claim more officials are starting to kind of admit it.
Admit to intentionally manipulating the weather on a large scale.
That's the assertion. Geoengineering weather control.
How? What systems are they talking about?
They often mention HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. That comes up a lot. And even cell phone towers.
Cell phone towers. How?
The claim is they can emit different megahertz frequencies to basically steer storms.
Steer storms, like Hurricane Harvey, they mentioned that one, right?
Yes, exactly. They allege Harvey actually stopped and went backwards, which is, highly unusual storm behavior.
Stopped and went backwards.
Yeah. And the sources even float the idea. There's almost like a big training exercise. They cite someone's personal account, someone apparently affected by Harvey.
That's quite a claim. Training exercise.
It is. And there's more they add to this environmental picture.
Like what?
Chemtrail spraying. They talk about massive amounts of chemical spraying from the air.
Ah, the chemtrails idea. Who do they say is doing it?
They specifically mention C-130 aircraft and the Air Force. Again, this is distinct from normal contrails. In their view, it's alleged chemical or biological agents.
Okay, so alleged manipulation biologically, environmentally, and then there's this bit about infrastructure, specifically nuclear reactors.
Right. They raise a really pointed question. Why are so many nuclear reactors built on fault lines?
How many are we talking about?
The sources say there are about 446 power-producing ones globally, plus hundreds of experimental ones, submarines, maybe 800 nuclear sites in total. And they claim a huge number are on seismic fault lines.
Which seems counterintuitive engineering-wise.
Exactly. The source material calls it the worst engineering in the world, implying it's almost deliberately unsafe.
And they mention the age of these reactors, too.
Yeah. They claim the average age is 37 years.
And the supposed retirement age is
30 years, according to these sources. So they're past their expected lifespan, on average.
And the implication is?
Their stark claim is that these reactors are just being run until they blow up. Basically, run until failure instead of being properly decommissioned.
That's a pretty terrifying thought.
It absolutely is.
Okay, let's shift back to the information itself. The sources talk about mainstream media, like CNN again. Why do they think outlets like that are supposedly starting to admit things now?
Like the fluoride link to IQ, or issues with things like serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs.
Yeah, those kinds of things.
Well, the sources suggest it's strategic. They claim these outlets are hedging their bet.
Hedging their bet. How so?
Because the sources claim they know we're going to win, and apparently they're losing their ratings. So it's seen as a sort of damage control or repositioning.
Win meaning the truth coming out.
That seems to be the implication.
Yeah.
They argue these admissions show a shift, that the media is being forced to cover what the sources call true subjects.
Why forced?
Because, they claim, people are finding out the truth elsewhere, and they're demanding the truth from mainstream sources now.
And they double down on the fluoride claim here, too, don't they?
They do. They flat out call fluoride a neurotoxin, and they use this really provocative comparison. They compare it to cobra venom to really emphasize how dangerous they believe it is.
Wow. Okay. And there was something about BuzzFeed, a scam.
Yeah, the sources mentioned an incident involving BuzzFeed allegedly testing a product called X2 Survival Shield.
What's that?
It seems to be related to the halogen discussion, maybe iodine supplementation, meeting certain standards like California's. The sources claim BuzzFeed's test was biased, designed to make the product look bad, but that it ultimately backfired.
Backfired how?
The sources see it as proof that people are waking up, they're getting smarter, and they can see through alleged media manipulation.
So attempts to discredit alternative ideas or products are failing, in their view.
That's the argument. They believe censorship, whether by Google or media outlets, isn't working anymore.
Why not?
Because the information they assert is going to get out there one way or another. They even make the point that, even the people at CNN care about their kids, suggesting a fundamental human element that bypasses corporate narratives.
The truth will out, basically.
That's the strong undercurrent in these sources, yes. An unstoppable awakening.
So let's try to wrap our heads around this. We've gone from, like, the pineal gland inside us to earthquakes and weather control to media narratives.
It's a wide net.
Yeah.
But there's a consistent thread, isn't there?
Yeah, it seems to be. The sources are weaving this narrative of hidden truths, maybe some kind of widespread manipulation, and critically, a population that's starting to see behind the curtain.
And the core message seems to be empowerment through knowledge. Understanding these claims, as presented by the sources, is positioned as the first step towards taking action.
Action for your own health, or just being more aware of what's supposedly going on globally.
Exactly. Which leads to a pretty significant final thought.
Go on.
Well, consider this. If you accept the premise from these sources that there is a deliberate effort to, let's say, dumb down or control the population,
Okay.
then what does that imply for the people who do become aware? Are they, as the sources suggest, really being boosted, moving towards something positive while others lag behind?
Like creating two different tracks for humanity.
Sort of. What does that alleged divide mean for how we all navigate the world? Especially a world that seems increasingly complex anyway.
And does becoming aware, in the way these sources define it, come with some kind of responsibility? That's a heavy question to end on.
It is definitely something to mull over.